Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Go Big or Go Home. I am Old Man Troy, joined by the marvelous youngster Kevin Cunningham, a.k.a. Kid Cunny on Twitter. I just think you're marvelous today, youngster. What's going on?
Only today I'm marvelous. I shouldn't say not a ton. I mean, this is one of my favorite times of the year because it's March Madness. And I've told you that a number of times, I think, on the show, even you've said it for me, that if I had to cover one thing for the rest of my life, it would probably be college basketball. So this, to me, is just, I'm in heaven right now.
I'm not, because I got to darn work. So, I got a real job. I guess I call it a real, I shouldn't say that. My employer's probably like, yeah, well, we pay you every week. So, wrong. I have a professional job that I have to do early in the morning till mid-afternoon, so it kind of sucks. But it is what it is. Didn't mean to interrupt you there, but I kind of get worked up, because this is my favorite time of the year too. And now this thing called work gets in the way of the Thursday-Friday games for me.
Right. Yeah. I have, I guess, somewhat of a luxury to be able to cover the Big Ten, not just this podcast, but writing-wise, and get paid for it. So that's a bonus. Having to watch tournament games and write about them and get paid for it, it's not the worst gig in the world. Not that it's a complete 100% full-time professional gig like yours, so it's not, completely roses, but it is very nice. And in general, I just love the ability to watch. I guess, like you said, that work gets in the way, and work will get in the way for me too at times. But just knowing that it's on and all of this analysis that goes into everything, I just love it. Not to say that football needs 16, 28, 64 teams in its playoffs, but basketball March Madness is one of a kind because of this, and especially it's a best of one. I mean, Penn, a 16 seed, could beat Kansas, a 1 seed, because Penn hits 75% of its threes, and Kansas can't shoot the three very well. Boom, there you go. 75-72, Penn wins, 16-1. I mean, it's just, that can't really happen. I shouldn't say can't happen, because 8s have beaten 1 before, and hockey obviously that's happened as well. Baseball, anything can happen too. But these ridiculous upsets, you're not going to see LeBron's team ever if they lose to a 16-seed worthy team in the NBA playoffs. You're not going to see a 500 team go out and beat LeBron's team best of 7. You're not going to see whoever the 8th seed is in the West go out and beat Golden State or Houston even in a best of 7. I mean, it's just not going to happen. When it does, it's great. But again, it's still over a 2-week period. Even if it does, it's not this little 2.5-hour window where it's like, oh my God, this is actually happening. This ridiculous upset is going to happen. So I like it. I think it's cool. I think it's completely drama-filled. But yeah, being able to talk about it for the next few weeks on this show, I'm very much looking forward to it. I guess I don't know if you've got anything more to say, Troy. Otherwise, I can get to our first topic.
Yeah, well, we're going to add a show. Hopefully that our loyal listeners keep tuning in. Make sure you follow us on Twitter at youngsteroldman. That's our show handle for all of the shows that we do, not just the Go Big show, but we will be posting out all of the links. Kevin and I are going to do a Friday afternoon show, which will recap the Thursday games, and actually probably a couple of the Friday games that are in progress by the time that we record. So just stay tuned. Join us on Twitter at youngsteroldman. Comment. We want comments. We're starting to get more people giving us comments and following us, so that's great. Keep doing it. Great show today, though, youngster. Big Ten, not only in the NCAA tournament, but it is intriguing to me also that Penn State and Nebraska are in the NIT. I'm actually probably going to follow the NIT a little bit this year. Normally I don't. Normally I kind of just let that tournament sit on the side, and I check the scores, see who's advanced. But you and I thought Penn State was a tournament team this year. We've talked about them a lot the last couple of weeks because they were on the bubble. And so I'm intrigued to see what they do in the NIT. Are they going to use this and say, hey, we're in the NIT, let's go out and win a tournament, or are they going to pout and bow out early? So I'm interested to see how Penn State and Nebraska do. Nebraska was the team, man, with a lot of wins, but not a lot of quality wins. So, again, I'm actually interested more this year in the NIT than I ever have been. I know it's the other tournament, but there's 2 Big Ten teams over there. This is a Big Ten show, and I'm not just saying that because we host this show. I really am intrigued to see how these 2 teams handle it because I think it's 2 teams probably on a different level, Kevin. Penn State started off slow, ended hot, wanted to go to the NCAA tournament. I think they're going to go out and play well. Nebraska, on the other hand, might feel like they were kind of just robbed of an invitation, and they might be that team that's like, screw it, we're in the NIT, we'll see what happens, and could bow out early. But let's start this show. We got a lot to cover today.
Yeah. My first topic is on this NIT. We'll mention Nebraska and Penn State as the weeks go on. This will, primarily be a March Madness NCAA tournament show for the next few weeks, up until April, basically, when I think April 2nd is the championship game. But yeah, this is my first topic, is that Nebraska is the first Big Ten team to win 13 games and not be in the NCAA tournament. They went 13-5. Last year, Michigan State went 10-8 in Big Ten play, and they were either an 8 or a 9 seed. So just gives you reference, and again, it matters who you beat. And I think that was a lot of the, we're not going to talk about the entire field and all of the snubs and all the teams that got in. I'll say this, that there were a couple teams I didn't think should have made it based on a number of things, and I would have loved to have seen Notre Dame make it. They even said that Notre Dame was in the field until Davidson upset. The name is leaving my head right now. But
isn't it funny, youngster, that we just talked about it last week? Everything needs to go perfect for some teams to get in.
Right.
And when one of those upsets happen,
right,
it totally skews the whole tournament.
Yep.
Man, it's almost like deja vu. Just last week we were talking about that, how these mid-majors really can put a wrinkle in the Power 5 teams that probably can make it in, but when there's an upset in the mid-major level, it causes havoc everywhere, and that's what happened. So I'll turn it back over to you.
Yeah, that's my only thing, is I would have loved to have seen Notre Dame get in. I think Davidson upset Rhode Island in the A-10 championship. Davidson wouldn't have made it, but they beat Rhode Island. Rhode Island was going to make it regardless. They obviously did, not winning the A-10 tournament. But so in any case, again, we're not going to go through every single team and everything, but again, Nebraska, first Big Ten team to win 13 conference games and not be in. Also Penn State, the first Big Ten team ever with at least a 500 conference record, and then winning 2 Big Ten tournament games to not make the field. I thought that was very interesting. 2 historic things over the course of this entire tournament. The history happened for the Big Ten, and we thought it would. I mean, we did not expect Penn State or Nebraska to make it. We figured they'd be an NIT team. The other thing that I wanted to mention was that Penn State is a 4 seed, and in the NIT, there's 32 teams. There's 4 regions of 8 teams making up each. So the top 4 teams host that first-round game. So, like, the 8 seed has to travel to the 1 seed. The 7 seed has to travel to 2, 6 to 3, 5 to 4. Nebraska got a 4. They're hosting it's also leaving my head right now who they're playing in the first round. But Penn State's hosting the first-round game in the NIT because they're a 4 seed. Nebraska got a 5 seed. So Nebraska wasn't even close. Penn State wasn't even close. I mean, to me, I was expecting, like, Penn State and Nebraska 1 or 2 seeds in the NIT because they were at least close, you would think, to making the NCAA tournament. But if you're a 4 seed, if you're a 5 seed like Nebraska, 13-5 in Big Ten play, and they're a 5 in the NIT, so they were like 20 spots out. They weren't even close to making the NCAA tournament. Penn State either. But Nebraska even has to travel in the NIT tournament. I mean, so they weren't even sniffing the NCAA tournament. And also, I think the Pac-12 got 3 teams in this tournament. So it's not even as though the Big Ten was just so much weaker than everyone else. So Nebraska's 13 wins don't mean anything. Or Penn State, and what they did don't mean anything. The Big Ten got more teams in than the Pac-12. So, yes, the Big Ten was light, so to say, but it was very interesting to see where Nebraska were seated. I don't know if you've got any thoughts on that. I'll move on to the actual NCAA tournament.
No, I do. Probably, I'm gonna bite my own tongue and slap my own face to not go into everything about it.
Yeah.
You look at it, it's true. You and I knew Nebraska and Penn State had to do miraculous things, and then we talked about it. Everything would have to go perfect across the country. But Penn State and Nebraska didn't do what they had to do in the Big Ten tournament. Penn State got 2 wins. That's great, but we didn't think 2 wins would be enough. Nebraska, a couple weeks ago, I'm like, yeah, well, can you really keep them out? And then the more we talked about it, it's like, yeah, look at your schedule. You didn't play Michigan State twice. You didn't play Purdue twice. You didn't play Ohio State twice. You basically had a cupcake Big Ten schedule. And I say that not to say bad things about the Big Ten, but when you look at the quality of play below that Nebraska and Penn State, we talked about teams beating each other up that are at a level that are not tournament level. They're not even NIT level. And so everybody hurt each other down there. Good quality teams. It's hard to go on the road and win. And you're going to get good games in the Big Ten, just talent-wise. These teams weren't able to put together a string of wins. Nebraska was that team that separated themselves from that type of team. But when you look at the overall makeup of these teams, and you look at Nebraska, talent-wise, and you go down to the Marylands, and you go down to an Indiana, and you go down to even a Wisconsin before all the injuries happened, Nebraska's right in there with that group of teams, Kevin, talent-wise. Yeah. That's where they're at. They separated themselves. They did what they had to do, no fault of Nebraska's. And I've always said this, you never apologize for your schedule. However, when you're looking at a tournament, you can only take X amount of teams. They got the short end of the stick because they didn't play top quality teams. As far as their seeding goes, yeah, that's crazy. I don't care what type teams you played, but when I look at the NIT, there are some good teams in there, and there's teams in the NIT that could probably win a few games in the NCAA tournament. But, man, to give them a 5 seed, that to me was quite surprising. Penn State, a 4 seed, okay. They started off, a little bit slow, probably weren't, they didn't have the win total, but overall I do think they probably are a better team than Nebraska, Kevin. So it's still, though, you look at it and go, man, a 4 seed. And they were supposedly on the bubble a few weeks ago for the tournament. I don't know. But that's why it'll be interesting to see how these two teams actually go out and play in the NIT. Yeah. Like I said, Nebraska probably feels like they were robbed. Penn State, probably thankful they revived their season because I'll be honest, right after Christmas, I thought Penn State was dead in the water, Kevin. They literally were pooing the bed. They couldn't get out of their own way. They couldn't do anything. And then at the end of February, middle of February, they started picking it up, playing a lot better. And it would have been nice if they would have been able to do that in January. And had they played that way in January, we'd be talking about Penn State in the NCAA tournament. Unfortunately, ball doesn't roll that way. They put themselves behind the 8 ball. They worked a little bit out from behind it. I think they're more thankful that they've revived a season that was going downhill fast. And so I think you got two teams with two totally different mindsets. But I'll ask you the question before we move on. Do you have more interest in the NIT this year now that and part of it is, yes, we do a Big Ten show, so that's partly the reason. But we did a Big Ten show last year, and I could have cared less about the NIT. This year, I'm actually going to at least watch Penn State and Nebraska and see how they do. So my question to you, do you have more interest in the NIT this year comparative to other years, youngster, and then we can move on to the next topic?
Yeah, I am more interested in the NIT this year than I am in any other year ever. Like you said, I do a Big Ten podcast now. We also did this last year. I also put Penn, which I didn't do as much as I did this year. So part of it is just where my time has gone and how much I am invested in the Big Ten. I'll say that I didn't watch as much college basketball outside of the Big Ten as far as the other teams go as I have in a really long time. I am as least knowledgeable about other teams outside the Big Ten as I ever have been, as far as I can remember anyway, until I was probably 10 years old or so. But so that's how much I love college basketball is I'll watch everyone, and I want to find those teams that are 5 seeds, 6 seeds, 7 seeds that I really enjoy and that I really want to take a long way. Usually matchups in the way of that. That almost happens every year where I love a team. Going in the NCAA tournament, they get a 6 seed, and then they run into it like a 3 seed in the second round that I like a lot. And it's like, my God, you got to be kidding me. I wanted this team to go to the Elite Eight, if not Final Four, but they run into a juggernaut of a 3 seed, kind of like, in my opinion, Michigan State this year. But the other thing that I want to mention, too, I guess, to get away from the NIT, move on to the NCAA tournament, is that the one, and not to say that, I don't know. I guess I'll ask you the question, Troy, if you don't have the answer. That's fine as well, because I don't even have a fully completed bracket yet. I still have to dive into some certain matchups.
I didn't make one pick yet, youngster. I didn't make one pick, and I don't make any picks. And this is just me. I don't make any picks until Wednesday night. I will sit down probably Wednesday night about 8 p.m. right before I go to bed. They always say your gut instinct is the one you stay with, right? So many years ago, and I'll share stories. I love to share stories, and apparently you like to hear them, so I'll share a story.
I do.
When I was back in college, way back yonder when the dinosaurs roamed, and we had to write our picks with, dinosaur bones on rock, I did my bracket. And then I had to get a new rock because I changed what I wanted to do. And then I changed it again, and then I changed it again. Moral of the story is when you go back, and I didn't really throw away, it's kind of funny, the rock analogy. I didn't throw away that first bracket that I didn't submit for. I didn't gamble back in college, by the way, because I was a college athlete. So I did it for fun. But that first one that I filled out, I actually, of the 4 that I did, and I only submitted the last one, if I would have submitted the first one, I would have finished in the top 3. The one that I submitted, I was done like after the second round. So the moral of this story is ever since then, I have played around and I'll look at it and say, that's an intriguing game. That's an intriguing game. This is an intriguing matchup. This team could make it out of there, but I won't sit down and I won't look forward and I won't make my picks until Wednesday night. Partly because it doesn't give me a lot of time to go back and change things, even though I want to, and I still can't get away from it. But I'll do that because everybody says your gut instinct, your first reaction, your first thought is usually the correct one. And so now by me doing this, I don't even touch the computer. I don't even log in. I haven't even made our group bracket yet for the tournament, which it's getting pretty close, and I'll maybe try to do it tonight, but it might be too late now. I should have did it Sunday. But I haven't touched it. I've looked at it, and there are some thoughts in my head of who I would pick, but I haven't actually put any clicks on a team yet. And I say clicks because you don't fill it out with paper anymore. I haven't clicked anything on the computer. Not one pick, youngster. So before your question there, I hope I gave you a long story.
You did. But it's cool because I'm with you that typically your gut instinct is right, and I have won multiple pools in the past. I'll say that. Not to say that I'm, this unbelievable college basketball March Madness expert, because I'm not. The last 5 or 6 years I haven't won a pool. And I think part of it, I do know too much. And it's like NFL, people who follow the NFL all the time, that's me. I mean, I'm all in the NFL when it's NFL season, even the NFL season, I'm all in. But every single year, growing up as a kid until I was basically 20 years old, my family, my mom, dad, brother, and myself would pick games straight up, just the winners, every single regular season. And at the end of every single regular season, my mom would pick more games correctly than me, my dad, and my brother, who absolutely doesn't care about sports whatsoever. But she would always win, my mother would, in those pick-em games straight up, not against the spread, but just straight up. I mean, Packers at Lions. And she would win more games over the course of the entire regular season than myself or my dad or my brother every single year. And part of it is just you don't have to care about who the defensive end is for the Redskins and if he's playing or not and how that's going to affect Sam Bradford in a dome when, it's cold out, but so the cold doesn't matter, but Bradford's healthy finally and he's in a dome and he doesn't have to face a better pass rush that Washington would have with that defensive end because now he's out with an injury. My mom doesn't know that. She doesn't care. It's simply for her in the NFL, if you've got 2 average teams, 2 good teams, 2 bad teams playing against each other, whoever's at home, pick them. If you're on the road and traveling, you have to be easily better than the home team to win that game. And typically, that's true. That's how I do my NFL pick now. There has to be an unbelievably crazy injury to happen, like the Packers without Rodgers, the Patriots without Brady, the Saints without Breeze. That's a little different. But again, you just understand huge injury and assess what the Packers are without Rodgers. Okay, are the Packers without Rodgers going to go on the road and beat anybody? Probably not. And same goes for Saints, Breeze, Patriots. It was a little different. They had Garoppolo, but they're not the same team without Brady. But so being for what you alluded to in your story is that sometimes you can know too much when it comes to selecting these March Madness things, and picking NFL games, wagering money on certain games in sports. Sometimes it's just pretty simple. And if Golden State's at home in a meaningful game, they're not going to lose. And if Cleveland's in the playoffs at home and it's a meaningful game and it's not against Golden State, they're not going to lose. Because it's at home, Cleveland's more comfortable, they're the better team with LeBron, just pick them. Not to say that against the spread, that's a different story, but straight up and March Madness, you're picking these games, it's a one-game thing. Does Virginia beat Arizona in the Sweet 16? Just go with your gut. And it's actually a story today where a Virginia guy, I believe starter, Hunter, he is fifth on the team in minutes per game this year. He's out for the tournament with a broken wrist. So that means something for Virginia. But just go with your gut. And sometimes you can watch too much college basketball like I have in the past, and it clouds my judgment. It's just like go with your gut. So yeah, I would say that. My thing that I was going to get into before we actually get to the Big Ten stuff finally is that Penn, 16 seed, that won the Ivy League and beat Harvard in the Ivy League championship game. This is a 16 seed that multiple people have talked about and said this isn't a typical 16 seed. They're a lower mid-major. They're probably around a 14 realistically, but they're not a crappy team. They're actually decent. They could actually beat a good team, and I say that because Penn plays Kansas, and this is one of Bill Self's worst teams at Kansas. I'll say that. They still won the Big 12, won the Big 12 tournament. They're a 1 seed. Everything looks fine, but this is not as talented a big Bill Self Kansas team as there has been in a while. So I'm saying this, that I'm picking Kansas to win the game. Kansas should win the game. Kansas is 15-point favorite. 1 seed versus 16 seed is actually very low. Usually it's in like the 20s, sometimes 30s. But Kansas is a 15-point favorite. They should win the game, obviously. But Penn is not a terrible team, and the only reason I bring it up is because a team like Oklahoma State, who didn't win or didn't make the NCAA tournament, which some people have an issue with, but Oklahoma State didn't make the tournament. They went 19-14. They beat Kansas twice. They beat them by 18 points, and they beat them by 5 at Kansas. So what is not to say that a team that didn't even belong in the NCAA tournament, Oklahoma State, beats Kansas twice? Why can't a decent 16 seed, who shouldn't be a 16 seed according to many, why can't they beat Kansas? Should they? No. But can it happen? Is it more possible that a 16 beats a 1 this year? And if that happens, 10 over Kansas, I think it is. It's just the only thing I wanted to touch on, really, not Big Ten-wise. So my question was going to be to you, Troy, if you had a upset already in mind, but you told me you do not have a pick yet. Again, I'm not picking.
No, but I will give you a little old man knowledge.
Yeah.
And I think you do this too, though. I will go through and I will look. And, for example, if I'm going to pick an 8 or a 9 over a 1,
right,
that's where I might roll out on the edge, because I'm already picking that team to lose in the second round. So, and the same goes true for the 5-12 matchup. Who's playing? Who's the next game, and would I have that team advancing? And that's kind of how I pick my upsets. And I will pat myself on the back a little bit. Some of these 5-12s, these 13s, these 12s, that 11s, 10s, I'm usually pretty good at picking those because I look ahead. I don't just look. A lot of people will go right down. You know, they'll go down, Kevin, you know what I'm talking about. They'll go down game by game by game by game, pick the winner, then go to the next round game by game. But I actually look ahead. And so I'll take a look at the group of 4 and see how that bracket's going to advance and who's the best of the 4, who's going to advance from that group of 4. And if I don't think it's one of those higher seeds, then I look at it and say, are they that much better than that lower seed? And could that lower seed take down that team? And that's how I pick my upsets. Now, there is some knowledge that goes into that. I don't just blindly say, oh, this 12 can beat this 5. Yeah. No, there has to be a legitimate reason. Like, are they a good post team? Can they control the ball? Like the West Virginia matchup, you need to have good guard play. They're facing good guard play because of the way West Virginia plays. I'm not foreshadowing an upset here, Kevin. I'm not. But if I look at that group of 4 with West Virginia and don't think they're going to make it past the second round, I very well could pick West Virginia to get upset. That's all I'm saying, because that's one that's been floating through my mind. So I wanted to give a little bit of old man knowledge. That's how I pick my upset. And I think you're kind of on the same page with me here.
Yes, I am. I do it almost every single year, because almost every single year I have a 2 seed losing in the second round to either a 7 or a 10. This year I actually don't have that happening, which is annoying. But I will pick a 15 over a 2 if I think the 2 is going to lose in the second round anyway. Because why not? If you can have that one pick difference and kind of hang your hat on it, I think it's very cool. I think a couple of years ago, exactly to the point you made with West Virginia, they play a certain style. They press the hell out of you. They do. They just press the hell out of you for 40 minutes. It's havoc. You need senior guards who don't turn the ball over. 2 years ago, West Virginia was a 3 seed. I think it was Stephen F. Austin was the team. They were a 14 seed. I looked at the matchup. I look at it in West Virginia's first-round matchup every single year. This year is no different. At how West Virginia plays, they press the hell out of you. You need senior guards who take care of the ball if you want to beat them. 2 years ago, they played Stephen F. Austin, a team who had senior guards leading the way. They had a senior forward who could help break the press. And that was a team that averaged the fewest amount of turnovers in the NCAA. It was the perfect recipe of success to beat West Virginia. I picked it. I wrote an entire article about it, and it happened. I'm very proud of that. I loved the pick. I loved all the knowledge that went into it for me. So, yes, this tournament is about matchups. And if you think your tournament bracket's going to go perfect game by game, and it's like, oh, my God, who do I take in this Final Four? If I think Arizona's going to play Michigan, it's like, well, realistically, what's the chances of that happening? Who's the better team? Who has the better shot of actually making it to the championship game in that scenario? That's who you should go with, not necessarily exactly who would win Arizona versus Michigan in a Final Four matchup. That's just a hypothetical. But the other, I guess, example that I can make for people is that people don't think Xavier is worthy of a number 1 seed. A lot of people think Gonzaga as a 4 is underrated. So a ton of people are having Gonzaga beat Xavier in the Sweet 16 this year. If that's the case, why not go with Missouri or Florida State to pull the upset over Xavier in the second round? If you think Xavier's truly going to lose in the Sweet 16 anyway, why not pick it a round earlier? If you pick it right and no one else is really picking it, and everyone thinks Xavier's going to lose in the Sweet 16 anyway, that could be the difference in your bracket pool, depending on, obviously, how your bracket pool is set up. But if you think Xavier's going down in the Sweet 16 anyway, pick them to lose in the second round. Why not? You're not going to lose a ton of points if you're wrong there, especially if Xavier doesn't keep going. If they do, then, you can be screwed. But you were going to be screwed picking them to lose in the Sweet 16 anyway if they go on and make, a championship-level run. So I do that all the time, Troy, with 15s over 2s. If there's a 3, I'm just looking at my bracket now. The 3 seeds this year, I've got a 3 seed losing in the second round. So I'll look more intently at the 14 versus 3 matchup in the first round for that team. If I think they're going to lose in the second round anyway, maybe I'll take the 14 over the 3 if it makes a little sense. So I have to personally look at that matchup more realistically. But so, yes, to go to that example, just interesting to me.
You just want me to make sure that I have Duke losing early. You know how this works. When I pick Duke to go far, they lose early. When I pick them to lose early, they go far. So how much money you throwing at me, youngster, to pick Duke to lose in the first or second round?
Well, unfortunately for me, I'm a Duke fan for those listening. I do give a little foreshadowing, Duke playing Michigan State and Duke losing in that matchup. So, sure, I'll hope that you pick Duke to lose in the first round so that they win the whole thing. But I'm not even 100% sold on Duke winning the whole thing anyway. I don't even think they get past the Sweet 16. So no money for you, Troy, unfortunately.
Not even Monopoly money? I like my Monopoly money.
Yeah, maybe I'll give you $5 in Monopoly money.
All right, we'll talk off the air. Let's move on to the Big Ten teams. That's what people tuned in for. Let's move right into it, youngster. Take it away, because I sent out a tweet after the seedings came out, and I actually used little emojis in my tweet. I don't use emojis very often, but you know what I'm talking about.
Yes. So my first topic, I guess, with the NCAA tournament, Big Ten-wise, is what was your initial reaction? What caught your eye in regard to these Big Ten teams? A lot of people are mad that Michigan State gets to go to Detroit, and Michigan, who, supposedly is the team more deserving of it, has to travel out west. I don't remember exactly where on the West Coast they're playing. They're in the West region. But so Michigan State gets to play its first 2 games in Detroit. As long as they win the first one, they'll play the second in Detroit as well. And Michigan got sent out west. Both of them are 3 seeds. So Michigan fans, of course, are mad that Michigan State gets to stay in state for its first 2 games when both teams are 3 seeds. That's one gripe around the Big Ten Michigan community. But the first thing that caught your eye, your initial reaction, my first thing, Big Ten-wise, was seeing that Michigan State and Duke should meet in the 16. That's huge to me.
No, I can't believe they're both in the same region. I can't. I mean, I look at this committee, and you're looking in this supposed S-curve. I don't understand this, youngster. Why are you having teams that are, I look at it and go, man, I don't know. I don't know if that's the right seedings there. So that, to me, was like, really, you're going to have a meet in the Sweet 16. Come on now. We know there's some bias in the NCAA committee. It's human. That's all I got right there, youngster.
Yeah. So I guess the next thing to me is the odds. That was something that caught my eye. The odds came out for who is supposed to win the NCAA tournament, the betting odds for the teams, before we actually get into each team and their Big Ten team and their kind of road to the Final Four, who they could play, especially the first-round matchup. I've got little notes on the 4 Big Ten teams and their first-round matchup. so we can look more in depth on those. But the last thing I wanted to get to before that, before we end the show, once we look more into the Big Ten teams, was the odds that came out, and Villanova is the favorite, 7-2, so basically 3.5 to 1. If you want to look at it that way, Duke is the second betting favorite to win the whole thing, 5-1. Virginia 6-1. That was before this injury was known, which dings Virginia a little bit. It's not a massive injury, but it hurts them. Michigan State also 6-1, so they're third, tied with Virginia, and they've got the third best.
So so this is my point here with this youngster. You take the Vegas odds, and now you put two teams that have good odds in the same bracket. What are you thinking? What are you thinking, committee?
And they're 2 and 3 seeds. They're 2 and 3 seeds. The 1 seed, Kansas is the 7th favorite to win the whole thing. Behind Duke, behind Michigan State. Actually, realistically, behind Michigan, behind Purdue. 3 Big Ten teams ahead of Kansas.
Yeah, it's so I'm not gonna mention this anymore. So, because I could keep rambling on like a crazy guy about this because it doesn't make sense. I mean, this is a game that you had said at the beginning of the college basketball season that you could see Duke and Michigan State playing in the championship game.
Yep.
You're not going to get that chance. You're going to have to see a Sweet 16 game amongst 2 of the better teams in the country. And to me, the committee screwed up there. And that's how I'm going to end it. I will not mention Michigan State or Duke again until we start talking about Michigan State and the road, but I'm not going to go off on a tangent about how upset I am that they're both in the same region.
Yeah, it sucks. I mean, when I saw it, I was pissed because I wanted to see Duke go as far as possible. And I said before the year started, I would pick Michigan State to beat Duke in the title game. Unfortunately, and it's hard to say that that's going to happen because they could meet in the Final Four or even Elite Eight, and it's like, okay, it's understandable. If one of these teams got a 1 seed, one got a 2, so be it. We talked on the show a week ago how Michigan State, if they were a 3, that's crazy because they lost 4 games all year. And going into the season, they were the favorite to win the whole thing. They lost 4 games. What did they do to prove that they're a 3 seed, let alone a 2? Not being a 1, I figured they would be a 2, but I was wrong. I thought they were closer to being a 1 than a 3. But apparently Xavier is much more worthy than Michigan State. Xavier is actually 20-1, which is 3, 6, 9, 10th best odds to win the whole thing. Is Xavier. And again, Michigan State tied for 3rd, Michigan in 4th, or I guess 5th, technically, at 10-1, Purdue at 12-1. So Michigan State 3rd odds-wise, tied for 3rd with Virginia, Michigan 5th, Purdue 6th. I mean, so Big Ten only got 4 teams, but 3 of them, according to Vegas, have top 6 odds to win the whole thing. And that's exactly how I feel. I think Michigan State, Michigan, Purdue, they're all juggernauts. Not to say that Michigan's a juggernaut, and Purdue has had its lapses, and Michigan State has taken time to get used to who Michigan State is, and even now, they're not perfect. They've lost to Michigan. So I think there are cases to be made against each of those 3 teams, but there are cases to be made against all these teams. Villanova is not what it was when they won the title game, or the title a couple of years ago. So to me, Virginia's Virginia. You can beat Virginia on any given night. Duke has proven that they can lose to teams not even in the NCAA tournament this year. Michigan State, Michigan, Purdue, they've had their lapses this year. So every team is beatable. There is no juggernaut. There usually isn't, but there's usually a couple heavy-hitting teams. This year I don't necessarily think that way, and I think people are giving Virginia a lot of credit. But this just goes to show that, Virginia, number 1 overall seed, people talking about Virginia, how this is a different type of Virginia team in terms of being better than every other Virginia team. Odds come out, Michigan State's got the same exact odds. They're a 3 seed. So nothing's really changed for me preseason to now. I think Duke is extremely talented. Michigan State's extremely talented. They're both in the top 3 for odds, the whole thing. I was right in my preseason thought. and that hasn't changed going into the NCAA tournament, so I'm not changing them now. I guess I'll say that much. But I guess to start looking at teams in the Big Ten, unless there's anything else you got, Troy, I'll start with Purdue just because they're the highest seed of any Big Ten team.
Well, I will start with Purdue, and I'll just say this. A 2 seed for Purdue, but Michigan and Michigan State are 3 seeds. And if Purdue's a good team, don't get me wrong, but if you're going to give Purdue a 2 seed, how in the heck do you put Michigan State behind them? How? I don't understand this. Good for Purdue. The way that they finished the season, and I know I was listening to something on the radio, and apparently they've wiped out this last 10-game thing on the committee and just look at the overall record and who they've beaten. I still think there's some relevance to how you end the season. Purdue a month ago looked unbeatable. You and I talked about it and said if the tournament started today, hands down, I'd pick Purdue to win the whole thing.
Yep.
Now, a month later, I think Purdue is beatable. Purdue is very beatable. Do they deserve a 2 seed? No. A 3 seed? Yes. I think you should flip-flop Michigan State and Purdue. That, to me, would have been the thing that should have been done. But, if you're Purdue, again, you're not going to argue. That's where the committee put you. You're a 2 seed. But the thing is, the last 3 weeks, Kevin, Purdue has looked human. Purdue has looked beatable. Now, can they get back to midseason form? Sure. Can they flip the light switch? They had a nice long break to sit down and think of all the things they were doing wrong before they exited the Big Ten tournament. Could they correct it before the NCAA tournament? Sure. Some of it might have just been mindset. Some of it might have been fatigue. For them, that long rest, wonderful for Purdue. So maybe it'll equate to a little bit of a run in the NCAA tournament. That's all. I'll turn it back over to you about Purdue.
Yeah. Just looking at Purdue, they play Cal State Fullerton. I don't have the dates, I believe, here. I'll have to pull that up, I guess. But Purdue gets, let's see, I have my little notes here somewhere. Cal State Fullerton in the first round. Cal State Fullerton 2011, they got hot at the end of the season. To start the year, they were crap, basically. Got hot at the end, won their conference tournament. They're a 15 seed. They're actually first in the country in free throw rate, so they get to the free throw line better than anyone, which in the NCAA tournament, that's actually bad because you're banking on getting to the free throw line. And the NCAA tournament, just in general, less fouls get called in the NCAA tournament. Refs want to swallow their whistle a little more, not influence games that everyone and their mother is watching so that they get criticized, so that they don't get this opportunity again. That's just realistic. And the numbers back it. So, like Melo Trimble at Maryland, I thought Melo Trimble was a great college player. He kind of banked on getting in the free throw line. That's how he was a big-time college basketball player. And that's why in the NBA, not really a huge, great outlook for Melo Trimble, but he banked himself on getting to the free throw line basically 10 times a game. And that's a number I just throw out there. But that's why I wasn't a huge fan of Maryland when Trimble was there, because that team and Trimble in general was kind of banking on getting to the free throw line. That's how they won a lot of closer games during his tenure at Maryland. So Cal State Fullerton banking on the free throw line, great if you get there, if you get all the calls against Purdue, but I just don't think it's going to happen. That doesn't bode well in the NCAA tournament. In the regular season, it's great. NCAA tournament, that actually somewhat works against you if that's how you're winning close games in general. But so Purdue, Cal State Fullerton, I don't think that's really going to be an issue for Purdue. Troy, I guess you can interject there. Otherwise, I'll move on with their road.
No, I mean, you brought up some good points. You look at Cal State Fullerton against a Purdue team that is just mammoth.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, you get to the free throw line. The problem that Cal State Fullerton is going to have is, can you get any rebounds to extend possessions or end the Purdue possession? I mean, the thing that Purdue is going to do against Cal State Fullerton, offensive rebounds and extend possession. And if Cal State Fullerton cannot rebound defensively, that's the biggest thing. And so when you look at teams against Purdue, and this is for anybody listening in that's doing their brackets, if you want to pick a team to beat Purdue, how good of a rebounding team are they?
Yeah.
Because the good rebounding teams will compete well against Purdue, because Purdue, mammoth size, and they shoot it well from the outside. I mean, Purdue's a good, well-rounded team. But the big key for me to pick Purdue to lose, how well does the other team rebound? Can they hold Purdue to one possession, one shot? And if they can do that, then you're going to have a chance to beat Purdue. When you look at all the games in the Big Ten when they struggled, it's because the other team was controlling the glass. And when Purdue controls the glass, they're unbeatable. If you're going to let Purdue control the glass, you don't have a chance to beat Purdue. Getting to the free throw line, if that's where you're holding your laurels, sorry, Cal State, not happening. I can't pick a 15/2 here, Kevin. I'll tell you that one right now. So there's a lock. There's a lock for me. Purdue's going to win their first-round game. Now they'll lose, now that I said it on the air.
Yeah, every year I look at those 15-2s because they're increasingly becoming more frequent in terms of how those upsets happen. Like Michigan State, the year I picked, and a lot of people picked Michigan State to win the whole thing, they were a 2 seed, and Middle Tennessee State was a 15 seed, and that upset happened. 15s/2s, it seems like happen almost every other year now. I don't think that's how the percentages work out, but that's what it seems like. And obviously, as you go on, 14s/3s, 13s/4s, the odds get in general. 15s/2, it used to basically never happen. Now it's like it almost happens every other year. I'm sure it's every 3 years that it happens now in terms of percentage-wise. But so that's always I look at everything, even 16s against 1. I'll look at who the 16 seed is. And, that's why I know a decent amount about Penn, because people are talking about Penn and who they are, what they are, how they're made up, and how Kansas just isn't necessarily this juggernaut this year. That's why Kansas, odds-wise, is, what are they, 7th, 8th, something like that I brought up before. But so, in general, going back to Purdue, they play the winner of Arkansas, who's the 7th seed, and Butler, who's the 10th. Butler is obviously Butler. They're interesting. They have a player who can score 30 points a game in a game if he wants to. And Arkansas loves to get up and down the floor. I love the way Arkansas plays. I love the up and down, in your face, press you full court, pick you up full court man. You don't necessarily have to trap, but having a bunch of athletes being able to run teams into the ground, I love that style in college basketball. It just entertains me personally. So Arkansas took a coach from Missouri a while ago who ran that 40 minutes of hell thing that they did in the 90s. That's their coach now. He was for Missouri at the time. But so anyway, Arkansas, style-wise, I have Arkansas beating Butler. Not through every single pick here, but Arkansas, to me, plays Purdue in the second round, and just stylistically, Purdue is well-rounded all over the place, but they have Isaac Hoff, and he's not the fastest-moving guy in the world because of how big he is. He's not unathletic. He's just huge. I mean, so Arkansas athletically is more athletic than Purdue. They just are. They're more athletic than probably 99% of the teams in the country. That's just the way they build a team. So could Arkansas give Purdue problems? Arkansas could give anyone problems based on how athletic they are. I think that game will be interesting. If Arkansas shoots the ball like crap and Purdue owns the board, Purdue can win the game by 25 points. Arkansas is not going to stay in every single game because they'll play themselves out of certain games. That's why they're a 7 seed. But so I like Purdue to move on, get to the Sweet 16, where at least seeding-wise, they should play Texas Tech, a 3 seed, or Florida, a 6 seed. And then you've got a couple other options in there, like 11 seeds and 14 seeds. But I think probably safe to assume Purdue, if they got to the Sweet 16 past Arkansas Butler, would play Florida, a 6 seed, or Texas Tech, a 3 seed.
And I had my phone on mute. I apologize. So, and you look at those matchups, it'll come down to Texas Tech and our Florida team against the Purdue. I like their chances. I like Purdue's chances against either one of those teams. I think they can step on the floor and play with them. The thing I like about this Purdue team, I'm getting tongue-tied. What I like about this Purdue team is that they're very experienced. We've talked about this. They lost Swanigan last year. Okay. We actually thought it actually, to me, made them a better team. So I look at this, and to me, I think that either one of those teams that they play, and that's if you're going to basically go chalk and pick the high seeds, you're looking at 3 or 6, but there's going to be an upset somewhere. I'm not sure if it'll happen in this bracket or not. But I think Purdue has a fighting chance in that Sweet 16 game to get to the Elite Eight. I really do.
Yeah. No, I like Florida as a 6 seed. I think they're dangerous, and I like Texas Tech more than probably most people. I don't think that game will be easy. Texas Tech's very good defensively. That game will, if Texas Tech plays Purdue, which I'm not, that's one of the things I'm torn on, is Florida versus Texas Tech, because I like both those teams this year. Texas Tech's got an NBA-level wing as well. I think he's going to be a very good NBA player. But so Florida is a lot like Arkansas as well, that likes to get up and down the court. Florida shoots the 3 a lot more, at least more efficiently. So Florida's dangerous. As a 6 seed, Texas Tech, defensively very dangerous. Again, you've got an NBA wing. So I like Texas Tech a lot as well. But Purdue is just more well-rounded than both of those teams, again. So I guess going chalk.
If I can interject there too, youngster, the one thing that we've been saying about Purdue, you talk about these teams flying up and down the court. Purdue can get into those type games. Yep. They can shoot it. Purdue can play the fast pace if that's the way you want to play, or you want to slow it down. But to be honest, a slowed down game probably makes Purdue to me even a more favored team because of the way they rebound. A fast-paced game, that makes it more interesting because then they have to be shooting the rock well. But they've got shooters. I mean, that's the thing with Purdue. They can shoot it from the outside. And not to keep referencing last year with Swanigan, but last year the Purdue MO is the ball had to go through Swanigan. Always. Always went through Swanigan. This year it doesn't have to. It doesn't have to go through a certain guy. So they can play that fast-paced game and they can score 80. They can play in the 80s. Or they can play in the 60s. And I think when they play in the 60s, I think Purdue's actually a team that you would favor more than not because they rebound the ball well and they shoot well from the outside. So if you want to slow it down, it might be a bad thing against Purdue. I just wanted to interject there because this is a Purdue team, when you look at it, they can go either way. There's no one MO for Purdue. Where are they better? I think they're better when they're methodical, when they go down the court, have a set offensive piece, because they're very efficient. And they rebound and they get offensive rebounds and they can extend possession. So to me, people may disagree with me, and maybe it's just the old man coming out of me, but I really think Purdue is better when they're methodical, when they work the ball down the court, get into a set piece on offense, get an open look, play box out, get offensive rebounds. I think Purdue's better in my mind that way, even though they can play what I'll air quote as run and gun because they have the shooters. But to me, Purdue's better when they set the offense, get into set pieces, and fight for offensive rebounds. To me, that's when Purdue's at their best. Turn it back over to you, youngster.
Yeah, I'm in 100% agreement with you. A perfect example is against Michigan this year. They lost to Michigan in the Big Ten championship game. Michigan is hot right now. They lost to Michigan, just like everyone else did down the stretch. But in the regular season, they also played Michigan twice. They beat Michigan at Michigan 70-69. It was a tough, slower, slug-it-out game. They also beat Michigan 16 days later at home, 92-88. So Purdue can slow it down. They can beat you, even a team like Michigan. And they can go and score 92 on Michigan, give up 88, and still win the game. So if that doesn't give you the perfect example that Purdue can play both ways in terms of tempo, then I don't know what will. They played Michigan State in the 60s. They played Ohio State in the 60s. They played teams like Illinois who want to get up and down the court. They beat Illinois 93-86. They can go up and down the court, and they can slow it down. Like you said, though, Troy, I think they're better at slowing it down, but they are great in the sense that they can do both things. That's what I don't like about Virginia every single year, is that they can't play up-tempo, and you're never going to speed Virginia up. You just never will. But you can get them in sort of a 8-point deficit because you hit a couple threes, and it's like, well, for Virginia, this is actually a little difficult to come back from an 8-point deficit. If you're down 20-12, they'll methodically make a run somewhere over a 4-minute stretch, a 8-2 run, and it's like, well, okay, there goes your lead. But it can take time. Not that Virginia can't hit threes. They can hit threes this year. They can score quickly, but they just choose not to because of how they purposely try to slow the game down to frustrate teams, basically. They're better at doing it than anyone else in the country. That's why Virginia is consistently very good every single year, because they stick to their identity and they're just very good at it, and they're better at it than everyone else in the country. They're the best slow team in the country, and that it but so Purdue, the 1 seed in this region, not the 1 seed hit, but the 1 seed is Villanova. A lot of people like Villanova this year. I like Villanova as well. I don't love them like some people do. But, so Purdue, Villanova, more into it. I didn't see enough Villanova to even have made my pick yet. But like you said, Troy, Villanova better have the big. They absolutely have the guard play. They also have an NBA wing. They also have an NBA point guard. This is a good Villanova team from the guard position, from the wing. Down low, though, I just don't know enough about them. I have to do more research on it, realistically. By the time this game potentially plays, I will absolutely have done more research on it. I plan on figuring out my bracket tonight. But Villanova, Purdue, again, I have to look at Villanova's bigs. But, you know, again, guard-wise, wing-wise, Villanova matches up with anyone. They've got a future NBA point guard and wing. But so that's why they're a 1 seed. They've been very good all year. They beat Xavier twice. They've actually beat Xavier pretty badly twice. But so these two teams are very good. I don't know if I have Purdue going to the Final Four yet or not. But regardless.
Well, I think, youngster, what we can do for the sake of this show is by the time that we find out what's going on here, we'll talk about it. I mean, unless you want to say more about taking Purdue to the final, I'm okay getting Big Ten teams to this Elite Eight because so much can happen between now and then. And again, what we're saying today, you know, we don't want to be like every other show, like, hey, we'll pick that game and pick that game. I think if it's okay with you, hey, we've got Purdue with a realistic chance of being in the Elite Eight. And that Villanova game, like you said, will it happen if they played Villanova? That is one of those games that, as of today, you could literally flip a coin. Villanova's a good team. Villanova's a very good team. And for us to sit here and break down that game, like you said, we just haven't done it yet. But we're giving Purdue a realistic shot based on what they've got to travel to get to the Elite Eight. I feel confident with that. Now, will I pick them there? I don't know yet. As I told you, I haven't made out my bracket yet, nor will I till tomorrow night. But based on things that we think, Purdue has a realistic shot of getting to the Elite Eight to face Villanova. So if you want to take it further, youngster, feel free. I'm okay moving on to the next team and stopping our show today with teams in the Elite Eight, unless you really want to take a team to the final. It's up to you. I'll turn it over to your marvelous knowledge. You're so eloquent when you do it.
Thank you, Troy. No, the only thing I'll say about Purdue is what I've said before, and a very short thing going forward past this point. Games against Arkansas, Butler in the second round, they'll be interesting. Purdue's game in the Sweet 16, if they make it there, Florida, Texas Tech most likely, it'll be interesting, no matter who they play. Against Villanova, like you said, flip a coin. These two teams are top 6, according to Vegas, in winning the whole thing. So this is, you know, a Final Four Elite Eight matchup. They're two very good teams. Again, got to look more into it, But in general, I don't have Purdue the whole thing. I'll say that. But can they make a Final Four? Can they win the whole thing? I absolutely think they can. The biggest thing that's more possible than Kansas winning the whole thing. Just to throw that out there for people. So I'm all aboard Purdue. But in general, Purdue is going to have some interesting games leading up to the Elite Eight. And can they win the whole thing? But I wouldn't say no to that at all. The next thing I'll move to, next team, will be Michigan State. The reason is there is no team in the Big Ten in the South region. There's only 4 Big Ten teams. There's only one in the East. That was Purdue. That's who we just talked about. There's only one in the Midwest, and then there's 2 in the West. So I'll just move to the Midwest just because only Michigan State is there. Michigan State's first-round opponent is Bucknell, who was a 14 seed, who Bucknell, to me, it seems like it's 4 out of every 5 years. That's probably not the case, but I'm used to seeing Bucknell in the NCAA tournament. That's just me. They score 81 points a game. They were easily the best team in their conference. It's not like Purdue's opponent, Cal State Fullerton, who just kind of won the conference tournament, and Bucknell by far the best team in their conference. They won that conference by 4 games in the regular season, won the conference tournament. They started 4-7, then they finished the year 21-2. They also had 4 overtime games, though, so they love to score a lot of points. They've been in close games before. Their top players are all seniors. They're a solid team. They're a 14, not a 15 or a 16 for a reason. They're not crap. This is probably where Penn should be, realistically. Keep talking about Penn basketball. But get up and down the court. But, again, they're a 14 seed. They played in 4 overtime games this year. They're not blowing everyone out. But so that's Michigan State's first opponent. Again, Michigan State, a lot like Purdue in my opinion, in the sense that they can go down, they can score in the 90s if they want to. They can also score in the 60s if they need to win a game. So I think this will be a high-scoring game. The Bucknell has never seen a defense as good as Michigan State this year. I think Michigan State's defense is what sets them apart from every other top-tier team, realistically. So I have Michigan State advancing past Bucknell. I think they'll score in the 70s. I think it'll be like an 86-73 type game. I don't expect a huge blowout, but it'll get Michigan State. It's a nice first-round opponent for Michigan State to get their feet wet. It's not going to be a cruise fest, in my opinion. And then they play the winner of 6-seed TCU or the play-in game, the 11-seed Arizona State, Syracuse. So that's their potential second-round matchup is TCU or the winner of Arizona State and Syracuse. I guess I'll turn it back to you, Troy. I think Michigan State advances past Bucknell.
Yeah, you can just keep Michigan State moving right along after that second round too. You don't have to turn it back over to me as you move forward into the Sweet 16 game where we already talked. They're probably going to face Duke. Michigan State, I mentioned it, middle of the season. The thing is, look at their record. You mentioned it. They lost 4 games, right, Kevin? You would have thought in the middle of January that Michigan State was like 500. And part of it is the expectation that was set on Michigan State at the beginning of the year as a possible NCAA champion. And they weren't playing great basketball, struggling with some teams, letting teams hang around. We talked about it on this show. Tom Izzo in January was playing, 9, 10 players deep? He's not doing that in the tournament. He's going 7 or 8 max. He had to figure out what he wanted to do with all that talent. This is probably the most talented team that Tom Izzo has ever had. And to try and figure out who are going to be my main components to try and win an NCAA tournament, that's what he had to do in January. And then as you look as the season went along, and you look as February rolled through, they were then taking care of some business. Now, in this world of college basketball, when you play top teams, yeah, they're going to be tough. You play a Purdue, you play a Michigan, and I'll even throw Ohio State in there because they're having a magical year.
Yeah.
But Michigan State, 4 losses? there's nothing wrong with Michigan State. If anything, they're better today than they were in January because Tom Izzo knows who his key contributors are. And here's the best part about it, Kevin. If Izzo has a rotation of 8, he's still got 9 and 10 sitting back there that can come into a game and are probably better than some of the starters on the other team. That's all I'm going to say. So Michigan State, to me, you look at where they're seated. Now, we can argue about being a 3 seed, but I don't see a problem in round 1. I don't see a problem in round 2. Pencil them right into the Sweet 16 for me. Take it away.
Yeah, I want to make this note just because it's out there now. That Virginia guy, DeAndre Hunter, he won the ACC Sixth Man of the Year award. Who's out for the tournament with a broken wrist. Just wanted to shed light on that because I just saw the news break out now as we're doing the show. So, again, a little hit to Virginia. It's not a massive hit, but it's a hit. Back to Michigan State, I'm with you. I'm not going to talk about TCU, Syracuse, Arizona State. They're all interesting teams in their own way, but Michigan State should get past them. Michigan State versus Duke in the Sweet 16. Could also play Rhode Island, Oklahoma, or Iona. But we think they'll play Duke, just like basically everyone else does. So that matchup, unfortunately.
If you want them to play Duke, I need to have Duke lose their second-round game.
Well, Rhode Island.
If I pick Duke, Michigan State, Kevin, if I pick Duke, Michigan State in the Sweet 16, it's not happening. I'm going to tell you this. Duke, wherever I pick Duke, they're not going to get there. So if I pick Duke to the Final Four, they're not getting to the Final Four. If I pick them to the Sweet 16, they're most likely not getting there because I'll throw this out there. I'm taking Michigan State. So Duke's run ends at the Sweet 16. Well, so that means they could win, I guess. I don't know, but my jinx on Duke, it's a real thing. We're going to have to follow it this year. Maybe I'll break the string. But I'm telling you, if I pick Duke, Michigan State, I don't think it's going to be Michigan State Duke. I really don't. I really don't think it'll be that. I had to interject there. I got to keep throwing this Duke jinx out because I truly have it.
Yeah, it's very unfortunate. I'd like to know what you did with Duke the year they won it. The most recent time they won it, I should say, not to gloat as a Duke fan, where they actually beat Wisconsin. But I won't bring that up either. In any case, Duke plays Iona in the first round. Iona's not a garbage 15 seed, and then in the second round they would play Rhode Island or Oklahoma. Rhode Island's pretty good, and Oklahoma has Trae Young. So a worthy opponent in the second round, even though people don't think Oklahoma should be in the tournament, because they're 4-11 in their last 15 games. And last year, South Carolina was 3-6 in the last 9. And last year, South Carolina beat Duke, and South Carolina also made it to the Final Four. So you don't have to be playing great. Going into the NCAA tournament, South Carolina proved it a year ago, and I'll keep bringing that up for the rest of my life because I think it's very interesting. 3-6 in the last 9 games. They go on a magical run in the NCAA tournament to the Final Four as a 7 seed. I think that's very interesting to me. South Carolina's run last year. But so in any case, oh my God, Oklahoma didn't deserve to be in. They're 4-11 in the last 15. I don't care. They have Trae Young. They're very interesting. Trae Young could go for 50 against a team, just like Steph Curry could in the NCAA tournament when he was there. Jimmer Fredette at BYU when he was there. These guys that can score 50 in the college players. Kevin, Texas, there's a handful of guys who can do it. They can win a single game in an NCAA tournament against anybody because they can just go off. So I hate people bashing Oklahoma because, oh my God, they didn't win a road game past January 1st. Oh my God, they were 4-11 in the last 15. Great. South Carolina was 3-9. They went to the Final Four. 3-6 in the last 9. Went to the Final Four. I don't like that argument anymore. I really don't. It's something I used to look at a little bit, not as much as other people. Now I really don't look at it at all because it's just like, great, you can be playing like crap, and Michigan could be on fire going in the NCAA tournament. Michigan plays a 14 seed Montana. Montana's not crap. Michigan could have lost their mojo over the last 10 days. Boom, they're done. It's absolutely possible. So going into the NCAA tournament, you can be red hot. I would rather be red hot than playing like crap. But I don't think it's the be-all, end-all. I think South Carolina proved that a year ago, and I'm sure there's other examples over the years, but South Carolina is obviously the most recent example of that. But so Michigan State, Duke, I just think Michigan State has been here one more time before Duke, in the sense that Grayson Allen's won the national title. Outside him, it's a bunch of freshmen. Michigan State also has a legendary coach. Duke has a legendary coach. Called a wash. I don't think either coach is completely out-coaching the other one in this one. But
coaches don't play, Kevin.
Talent-wise,
coaches don't play the game. That's why when you have two great coaches like this, they don't play the game. There's no advantage to a Tom Izzo coach team against a Coach K team. They don't play. Their players have to go play. Whoever makes less mistakes in this game, whoever handles the ball better, whoever doesn't turn it over is going to win this game. And I give the advantage to that to Michigan State, a more veteran team. They've got young guys, too. I mean, I guess you call sophomores veterans. But I just think Duke is younger, good players, but I think Duke will turn it over more than Michigan State will. And it has nothing to do at that point with coaching. Yeah, will there be a set piece here or a substitution made here? Yeah, but they're both legendary coaches. The players are going to play this game, and whoever turns the ball over less. I mean, it sounds pretty common, like common sense, but in a game like this, 2 turnovers that turn into 4 points or 5 points or 6 points, that's going to be the difference in this game. I think they're 2 very good teams, but whoever turns it over less wins this game. That's all I got.
Yeah, this is a championship-level game, according to Vegas. And I think Vegas is more qualified in terms of who's winning more games than the NCAA Tournament Committee. I think that the selection committee does a very good job in general. But I trust Vegas more than I do the committee of the NCAA Tournament. That's just me. Vegas is out there to win money. They're supposed to beat you. The NCAA Tournament just wants to get it right, quote-unquote, and send teams as least away from home as possible. So it's not even supposed to be a perfect bracket in that sense. They care about travel as well. So in any case, I'm 100% with you, Troy. I also wanted to mention that the thought was on the bottom line. This has nothing to do with the show. But the Titans are reportedly going to sign Malcolm Butler from the New England Patriots. So I'm very happy at this very second. Just want to throw that out there. As a Titans fan, going back to Michigan State, though, Michigan State, the 1 seed in the Midwest region, is Kansas, who we've talked about. If Kansas gets past Penn in the first-round game against 16-seeded Penn, they could play Kansas in the Elite Eight. I'll say this, that I have Kansas beating Penn, unfortunately. But Kansas would then play Seton Hall, NC State. I think Kansas wins. Kansas then, in my opinion, probably plays New Mexico State, realistically, at 12 seed. I think they make their way through because Clemson is not what Clemson was at the beginning of the year. Auburn is not playing well also. Those are the 4 or 5 seeds at the top of the Midwest with Kansas. So I think Kansas has a fairly easy road to the Elite Eight. Michigan State, Kansas, again, like I said before, I think Kansas is not what Kansas has been in recent years. I'm almost never a huge Kansas guy. It seems like for whatever reason, it's just random, but I'm never huge on Kansas teams. It seems like Michigan State, to me, just has more talent. They've been here. Kansas was here a year ago. But they lost a lot of key guys. So, to me, I just think Michigan State is better in basically every single aspect. I think Kansas is a very good team, honestly. But Michigan State is just better in every aspect, realistically. And Michigan State for the Final Four play the winner of Villanova-Purdue.
I think I lost you, youngster. I can't hear you talking.
Oh, no, I'm done. I just said Michigan State plays the winner of Villanova-Purdue in the Final Four. I guess I left that on a cliff.
I thought you were still. I thought you were still talking. Sorry, folks. That's the joys of not being in the studio together. Yeah, nothing more. Michigan State. Let's keep it moving along. Next team, bring them up.
So, Michigan is the 3 seed in the West. Ohio State's the 5 seed. I'll start with Ohio State. Their first round opponent is South Dakota State. They're at 12. I've got my little notes here. South Dakota State, 28-6, averages 84 points a game. They want to get up and down the court. If you haven't heard the name by now, you will. Mike Daum at South Dakota State. He is the only player ever who has averaged 23 points, 10 rebounds a game in a season, while shooting at least 40% from three. He shoots 42% from three. He's the 6'9" player. You're not supposed to be able to do that. The only other person to do that in a season is Kevin Durant at Texas. Not to say that Mike Daum is the next Kevin Durant, but it gives you some perspective. A 6'9" guy averaging 23 and 10, shooting 42% from three. He's a talent, to say the least. South Dakota State, they also have a good backcourt. They've got 4 guys that can shoot the three, all at 38% or higher from three. They're a 12-seed mid-major for a reason. They're a legitimate threat to win a game or two in the NCAA tournament. Mid-majors who are 12 seeds, they're to be looked out for. Mid-major teams should be 14, 15, 16 seeds. You don't see a ton of 12-seed mid-major teams. South Dakota State is certainly one of the better ones. We lost to Kansas by 30 earlier this year. They also beat Iowa from the Big Ten. They beat Buffalo, who is also, I think, 28-6. They're in the NCAA tournament. They lost to Wichita State by 10. They only lost one conference game this year. They finished the year 19-1 in the last 20 games. They decimated everyone they played that they should have beaten, basically. But, again, when going up against Wichita State, they lost. They lost to Kansas big. They play Ohio State. Ohio State's not Kansas. A lot of people look for that 5-12 upset. I'm curious on your thoughts on this game, Troy. South Dakota State absolutely has the talent to beat Ohio State. Mike Daum versus Keita Bates-Diop is going to be a heck of a round matchup in terms of player versus player. 2 of the better players in the country, flat out, regardless of conference, regardless of mid-major or Power 5 conference. This is going to be a very interesting game to me. A lot of people pick 12s over 5s. They look for that upset. This is absolutely one of them that could happen. I personally am going with Ohio State, though, because I think Ohio State is just better around their star than South Dakota State is. But again, South Dakota State has a good backcourt. They can shoot the three from 4 different positions really well. They're a legitimate team to, again, win a couple games, but Ohio State, I have them advancing in probably a game that most people are actually picking the upset in.
Yeah, this is going to be that nationwide Flavor Flav game.
Yep.
Where they look at the superstar that San Diego State has, and he's a heck of a player. I mean, I was watching some highlights. Man, you talk. He's not the next Kevin Durant, but he could be a Kevin Durant in this tournament, right? Take a game over, start shooting from downtown. However, when you look at Ohio State, comparative to San Diego State and the competition that Ohio State had to play, Ohio State has seen. Ohio State
San Diego State too. Yeah, it's South Dakota State.
Or South Dakota State. Sorry, I got. It is what it is. The state,
I'm mixing it up as well.
I'm basically not giving them a chance to win this game. Basically, Ohio State plays in the Big Ten. They've seen big guys go outside and shoot the three before.
Yeah.
So he's a great player, but look who he's playing against. And look how they did against top-notch teams. I'm not saying Ohio State is a top-notch team. Look at where they're seated. They're seated 5th. I never thought Ohio State would be in the position they're in this year. But Ohio State, based on what they've had to do all year, they've done nothing but surprise me. They've exceeded every expectation that I put on them. I thought they were a middle-of-the-pack Big Ten team. I thought if they were going to make the tournament, I didn't think they were going to make the tournament. Then they got off to a great start. I said, prove it to me. They kind of fluttered a little bit, but they're still a good team. They believe in their coach. They've got some talent. They play defense. They play defense, Kevin. And they've played in the Big Ten. And people can say, well, the Big Ten's down. Yeah, the Big Ten's down, but not at the top. And Ohio State hangs in with the guys at the top. Ohio State hangs in with the big boys. So South Dakota State is not a big boy in the Big Ten. So the flavor of the month, I keep wanting to say San Diego State. South Dakota State, people can pick them all they want. And it's not going to be an easy game. Don't get me wrong. Ohio State's not going to walk in there and win by 20. But I think Ohio State, based on what they've done all year, I think this is their game. This is their game. They're not gonna fall victim to a 12-5. So now that I've said that, make sure you pick South Dakota State, because you pick against the old man all the time. And if you want to prove it, you can join our bracket challenge, which will probably be out later tonight. So sorry for calling you San Diego State, South Dakota State, but you got state at the end of your name, and I'm not giving you a chance in this one. Sorry, you're not my 12/5 pick in this year's NCAA tournament.
No, I'm looking at 12s versus 5s, so I guess I'd have one for sure. I might have Murray State over West Virginia as well. So I was going to make the point that I think I have every 5 seed advancing. I think that I had that last year. But this year, I definitely have a 12/5. In any case, I'm against the grain. I think last year there was a pick, a 12/5, that literally more people picked the 12 seed to win than the 5, and I think that 12 seed did. I don't remember exactly who it was. It might have been Middle Tennessee State. I think it was. I think Middle Tennessee State played Minnesota in a 5-12. Let me check and see if Minnesota did get a 5 last year. I'm pretty sure they did. Actually, I thought I had it written down. Yeah, they did. They lost to Middle Tennessee State. So, yeah, that was the game. More people picked the 12 seed in Middle Tennessee State over 5 seed in Minnesota. I went with Minnesota. I went against the grain, picking the quote-unquote better team, the favored team, and they lost. That might be the case this year, but next for Ohio State, if they get past South Dakota State, is probably Gonzaga. Gonzaga is a 4 seed. A lot of people think Gonzaga is better than a 4. I agree. I think they are better than a 4, but I'm not in love with this Gonzaga team like a lot of people are. I don't think they are as good as they were a year ago. I think this is a classic Gonzaga team in the sense that, okay, you can make it to the Elite Eight, but you're not that good. You're not going to make it to the title game like they did a year ago. And I absolutely thought, and I'm pretty sure I wrote an article about how Gonzaga last year was the best Gonzaga team ever under Mark Few, and they got to the title game and pushed North Carolina to win the whole thing. But so Gonzaga this year, I think they're about as good as they have been in recent years in general. Gonzaga teams that have gotten 1 seeds, I haven't been in love with, and nobody really has when they were 1 seeds. But up until last year, it was. But so, in general, Ohio State, Gonzaga, stuck around most likely. I did not know this until literally 2 months ago. Ohio State played Gonzaga November 24th. And they lost that game. They lost that game 86-59. So that's interesting to me. I initially have, and my bracket's not finalized, but I have Ohio State kind of proving the point, going against the grain, beating Gonzaga. But if they lost to them by 27 earlier this year, it's something I have to look back at. It's something that I'll have to look at. Actually, I don't have it filled out, quote-unquote filled out, because I have to look at it more. But again, I didn't know Ohio State played Gonzaga earlier this year, lost 86-59. Obviously going to be a challenge for Ohio State, even if they play Greensboro, if they beat Gonzaga. Then UNC Greensboro is obviously not going to be, should not be taken lightly. So Ohio State will have their challenges early on in this tournament before they even sniff potentially playing number 1 seed as Xavier.
Well, it's a tough road. I mean, I'll say this for Ohio State. I'm not sure if they're going to make it even to the Sweet 16. I mean, honestly, they could be knocked out in the first round. Yeah. I know that I'm picking Ohio State. They've got a tough draw in the first round. For them, if they got to the Sweet 16, Kevin, that would be exceeding my expectations again of this Ohio State team, which they've done all year. Yeah. They've done it all year. So I wouldn't put it past them to get to the Sweet 16 because they've done nothing but exceed everybody's expectations. But where the old man is, I am not picking them into the Sweet 16. I mean, they've had a magical run. They've had a great run. But I just think when you get to this level and you get to the NCAA tournament, they gave you a pretty tough draw in the first round against a very athletic South Dakota State team. And then should chalk happen, you got Gonzaga. I don't see Gonzaga losing in the first round. But Gonzaga's tough. Like you said, they played them earlier in the year. Gonzaga took it to them. Should Ohio State get by that game, then we can talk about them on next week's show. But I don't see it happening. So let's move on to the final team, Michigan.
Yeah, Michigan got a 3 seed in the West. Again, Michigan fans are pissed they're in the West, playing in Detroit the first games potentially. But so Michigan plays Montana with a 14 seed. Like I said before, Montana's not crap. That's why they're a 14 seed. You're not crap if you're a 14 seed. But so for Michigan against Montana, I put down in my initial notes they're fine. There are 3 main scorers on that team. The top guy is 6'1". There's nobody on Montana bigger than 6'8" that plays significant minutes. There's one guy that shoots well from 3. This team's a good small team, is what they are. So Michigan, even though Michigan is not huge, they'll still have an advantage inside. Michigan will obviously have more talent to play on the wings, at guard.
Michigan's pesky, youngster. They're pesky.
Yeah.
They're a pesky Michigan team. That they fight. They're a blue-collar team. I think that's why a lot of people like them, and I think that's why I like them. They're a blue-collar team. They're pesky. They don't have the mammoth size that a lot of these other teams have, but they're not afraid to battle the bigs. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I would agree. I have Michigan moving on. They play the winner of Houston, who's a 6 seed, or finally San Diego State, who's an 11 seed. Michigan, I have playing Houston, who's a 6 seed, in the second round. Houston, I like a lot. Houston was ready to take Cincinnati into overtime in the Big East. Is that correct? No, it's not correct. I'm blanking on which conference. The American. That's what it is. Houston and Cincinnati were in the American Conference Final. You've got so many different conferences and teams moving conferences now. Cincinnati obviously used to be in the Big East. But in any case, Houston, Cincinnati, Houston was they've been playing really well down the stretch. I was looking to take Houston multiple rounds in this tournament. They were one of the teams that I was really looking forward to seeing who they were going to match up against potentially. And unfortunately, as always, a team that I want to take a while, they run into Michigan in the second round. I just think Michigan's a better version, basically, of Houston. Not that Houston's exactly the same build of Michigan, but they play faster. They've got good guards. I think Michigan plays better defense than what most people think, and Houston plays pretty solid defense as well. Houston scored like 11 second-half points against Cincinnati and still should have made it to overtime until they turned the ball over late. So in general, and they had like an over-the-back foul called with like 4 seconds left. That's how they lost that game. Was they got called on an over-the-back call on offense. They were shooting, I think, a 3 with 4 seconds left. Got called for over and back. Cincinnati was on the bonus, made one of their free throws, and won the game by 1 point. That's how Houston lost the American Tournament Final. I think it's going to be a battle for Michigan, absolutely, in the second round. But I really like this Michigan team to move on and probably play North Carolina, who's the 2 seed. North Carolina, go ahead. I'll finish this, Troy, quick. North Carolina, second round, plays the winner of Texas A&M Providence. A lot of people like Providence. I like Providence as well as a 10 seed. I think that's who they play. Michigan might not even play North Carolina. North Carolina is a 2 seed. You think they're, obviously a very good team. If they're North Carolina, they're a 2 seed. I think they are a very good team, but they're not a classic North Carolina team. They're actually more guard-oriented than big-oriented, which is very weird for North Carolina. But so to me, it's Michigan and North Carolina in the Sweet 16, which, again, I don't – a lot of people think Michigan's got this fairly easy road because Xavier's the 1 seed. Maybe that's the case, but Houston's no joke, and obviously North Carolina's not crap, and a lot of people like Providence as a 10 seed as well. So whoever Michigan plays in the second round, Sweet 16, they're going to have their hands full.
Yeah, they're definitely going to have their hands full. They're going to have their hands full in the second round. And here's my problem. Remember we talked about the Big Ten tournament being 2 weeks ago, or it seems like a month ago. The team that it hurt was Michigan because Michigan was playing good basketball to make that run through the Big Ten tournament. And this Michigan team, you look at some of their games that they played, they do have their lapses. They do have their time. Now, Michigan's good enough to come back from a deficit. They've got good enough talent to come back from a 10-point deficit. And Houston's a team, I don't know a whole lot about Houston. I know a little. But like you said, Houston's a team that can give you the game, and will Michigan capitalize on it? Because if Michigan gets up on Houston, Michigan will put their foot on the throttle and keep going. But Houston's also that team that, like you said, they're pesky. They're pesky. So you got two pesky teams playing each other. And so it's like two little kids outside playing. Who's going to be the last one standing? Who's going to be the one that falls in the mud puddle? We don't know. It could be Houston. It could be Michigan. I think Michigan has a shot to get to the Sweet 16, but I wouldn't. This will be one of those picks, Kevin, that I have to take a look at it and say, whoa, where do I feel? Where does my gut? And that's why I said I don't pick these games until Wednesday night. I may very well have Houston beating Michigan, but Michigan could very easily beat Houston, and Michigan could then win their Sweet 16 game. They could beat Xavier. Michigan's that good, but Michigan's also that team that could fall in the second round. So I'm sorry, listeners, I can't give you any locks. I know you want Troy to pick a lock to pick against him, but there's nobody to pick against. If you want to pick against me, you're going to have to join our bracket challenge, which you'll find on Youngster Old Man. And by the time this show is posted, the bracket will be set. It will be in stone. I think I'm going to do it on CBS Sports, Youngster. I think that's where I'm going to do it. But if you want to pick against the old man, you're going to have to go join our bracket challenge. This is just a Michigan team, Kevin, that can play lights out and be a Final Four team, or could be that team that gets knocked out in the second round. And I think that long layoff hurt Michigan. I'm not down on Michigan. I just think having that much time off, if there's any of the four teams from the Big Ten that it hurt Michigan. That's all I got.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you. Michigan, North Carolina, though, in that Sweet 16, again, two guard-oriented teams pretty much. I think Mo Wagner is probably the difference in being a mismatch. That's a big who can step out. That'll be a very good game. Michigan-Houston will be a very good game as well. I have Michigan, if you want to pick against someone, pick against me. Because, again, I already mentioned I have Michigan State in the Final Four. Purdue, I'm not sure yet, but Purdue could win the whole thing as well. I think Michigan State can win the whole thing, and I'll say this on this show. I do have Michigan State actually winning the whole thing. I don't even know who they're playing in the Final Four or championship game. I just have Michigan State winning the whole thing. There's nothing that has changed in my mind from the preseason to now. So I said Michigan State will win the whole thing before the year started. I'm sticking with it.
Nice, Youngster. Way to stick to your guns. Way not to be one of these bandwagoners that looks at everything. I like it. I like how you've stuck to your guns. I like it. And you know what? We talked about this. I don't know who my champion is yet. I don't have a team. I have a group, and this is how I do it. I have a group that includes a number of teams, and I'm not even going to let the cats out of the bag because you'll pick against me then, everyone. You'll have to go to the bracket challenge, find us at Youngster Old Man on Twitter to get the link, to get the invite. Actually, go on Facebook to Troy Robert on Facebook. I'll post it there if you're more of a Facebook lover. But I have a group of teams, and that's how I kind of go through the bracket. However, like I said, I take it by groups of four. And then, I have my favorites who I'm going to pretty much run them through. But there might be that game where I think, hey, this could be a hard one, and maybe I take them out of my handful of teams. And as I do that, I come down to one, and then it's like, boom, picking them. There you go. So I like how you stuck to your guns, though, Youngster. And with that, this show has went nearly 2 hours again. We said before, well, let's keep it an hour. Going on 2 hours, we can just keep talking and talking and talking. But I'll tell you what, people listen. You listen to the Big Ten recap when it was nearly 2 hours. You listen to the Big Ten preview when it was nearly 2 hours. I think this show is just a 2-hour show. Hint, hint, radio stations. The Youngster and I can give you 4 hours of content for a morning show. or an overnight show or a drive time show. Yes, we can. Sorry to plug ourselves for everybody listening, but I think we're done now. I'll turn it back over to the youngster. I'm always plugging us, youngster, because we're good. We're good, and we can talk 4 hours. Put commercials in, put advertisements in, put callers in. The content we had today would go more than 4 hours. So radio stations, call us. Get us on your station. We're ready to pack. We're ready to move. We'll go to Montana. We'll go wherever you want us to go. The youngster and I are ready. Any last words you have about the Big Ten, Kevin, because we got to let the listeners go?
Yeah. I mean, we basically talked about 6 teams, including Penn, and we went, an hour 35 we are right now. But in general, we can talk all day about sports. We just talked about the Big Ten and Penn basketball pretty much today, as well as the NIT. But so in general, stick with your guns. The last time I won an NCAA tournament was when NCAA tournament pool was when I started.
I was going to say, I want to see that ring, youngster. Let me see the NCAA championship ring. I want to see it.
Yeah, that'd be something. So 2013, I picked Louisville before the year started. I said this is just the best team in the country, and I've said that before the year started.
You mean the one that's vacated?
Yep, the one that Louisville quote-unquote didn't win. The one that never happened, supposedly.
I had to bring it up.
I know. But yeah, that was the last time I won a pool, was because I knew before the year started Louisville's the best team, and I picked them to win the whole thing when the tournament came out.
Now we know why they were the best team.
Yeah, they had some entertaining times at Louisville. But I'm sticking with my guns. Just stick with your gun. If it's a coin flip game, and I've heard this. If it's a coin flip game, literally flip a coin. Whoever it lands on, pick that team, except don't, because when you click on that team, you're going to click on the computer, like you said earlier, Troy. When you click on Michigan State beating Duke on that coin flip, and you're like, wait a minute, hold on a second. If you have hesitation, just go with your gut and pick Duke. So if you've got a 50-50 game, flip a coin, go with that team, and then think about it for a second, like, okay, does this actually make sense? If it doesn't, go with your gut. It's that simple to me. Because, again, trust your gut. If you're doing these, you have somewhat knowledge of college basketball, most likely, although there are some listeners on the show probably who don't have a ton of knowledge, although I don't know a ton of listeners who don't have a ton of college basketball knowledge. Who would listen to us for an hour and 40 minutes?
Yeah, if they're at this point, youngster, they're not a casual fan. They're a diehard fan, and I'm going to tell you what. I'll get serious, and all my jokes aside and all my cliches and all my things. If you're listening at this point, please follow us on Twitter, because you are then loyal listeners, and we appreciate it. I'll tell you what, Kevin, I enjoy every single one of our listeners. We know we get thousands of them. We see the analytics. We see the results. And people do listen to the end, and I know you appreciate it too.
Yep.
We do this for the fans. We don't do it just so we can hear ourselves talk. We do it. We have fun doing it, and it's for all of those people that have clicked on the grueling truth, have clicked on Go Big or Go Home. So follow us on Twitter, at TroyRobert967, at KidCunny. It's not about, I got another follower today. I want listeners of this show to follow me, give me input, talk to me, and I know the youngster does too. Again, if you're a Facebook lover and you don't do Twitter and you just do Facebook, it's Kevin Cunningham on Facebook. I'm at Troy Robert. Find us there. But we definitely would love to interact with everybody, especially if you've listened over an hour and a half. You're a basketball fan through and through, so find us on social media. With that said, youngster, I'm going to let these wonderful listeners go. I am going to go home tonight. I'm not even looking at the bracket tonight. Tomorrow's my day. Wednesday night is when I'm going to do it. I shouldn't say that. I got to put the bracket together tonight. So we are going to have a bracket. If you're listening in, make sure you find us on Twitter at YoungsterOldMan for the link, or on Facebook, Troy Robert. I will post the link tonight for the bracket challenge for Go Big or Go Home. Have a good night, everybody. We'll get back at you. Actually, over the weekend, we're going to record a show on Friday. Not sure when Coach Goodpasser will post that show. but he'll probably post it rather quickly because it will be a time-sensitive show on Friday afternoon. Enjoy your night, everybody. We'll get back at you later.